I'd like to welcome you all here to our session today. My name's Donna and I'm going to be taking you through our session on motivating and inspiring your team using targets. Before we do that though, I just want to check that you can hear and see what's on the screen. So if you can see the Katoomba University shield on the page, it should be a blue background. If I can get you to raise your hand. Now your hand is, there'll be a hand on your icon on your oh wow, here we go, lots of hands up, thank you very much, that's great. Okay, so we'll get on into it. If you've got some questions as we go through today, if you can just pop those in and we'll get to them at the end of the session. We do try and answer all the questions, but sometimes we just run out of time, and in that case we'll send out those answers to you by email later on. So let's move on to our first thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about targets, and we're going to talk about how to motivate your team to achieve those targets. And I want to talk about the targets that you can set in Katoomba One. Now these are the ones that we've selected for you. After a lot of discussion with people, these are the ones we felt were the most relevant. These are total sales, service sales, retail sales, appointment retail sales, total appointment value, average appointment value, and of course my favourite, client rebooking. So let's have a look at those in a little bit more depth about what does it actually measure. So let's have a look. Total sales. Now total sales measures the total value of all products and services sold. However, it does exclude vouchers. So if you sell a lot of vouchers, don't expect to see those in here. Service sales. Now this is the total value of all services sold. And some of the things I'd just like you to think about this, this particular measure is what it's, if you think about revenue is actually trending up at the moment. Clients are spending more overall, not just on colour, but with the industry experiencing a 15% increase over the past 5 years. So year on year, that's an increase of 2.8%, and with inflation increasing just over 1% each year. Sell-ins, you should have actually noticed by now a bit of a revenue increase, and a fairly healthy one in some cases. Now, if you're not, you probably need to think about, are your prices right? So do you actually know the effects on your business when, for instance, let's say you reduce your prices? Do you know how much extra business you need to do to make the same profit as you would by not reducing prices? Did you know that if your gross profit margin is 20% and you reduce your prices by just 10%, then you need to increase your turnover by 100% just to make the same gross profit. Now those stats for me when I was researching this, I thought, wow, that's an awful lot to make up. The other side of it is if you raised your prices by 10%, you can actually afford to lose 33% of your sales before you actually lose any gross profit. So just a bit of a thinking for you there. Now our data shows that the average number of colour clients has remained the same, but what's interesting is that they're actually spending more money. So those that are having colour are spending more, and probably by about 12.5% is what we've charged. So if you think about it, so if I'm paying $96, that increase is going to take it to 108. So that makes a difference. Now, there could be lots of reasons for this. It could be that there's a huge rise in colour trends, there's new products, the clients are perceiving an extra value in having this done, and therefore they're quite willing to pay for it. So perhaps it's time that you had a look at your prices. And of course one of the secrets about raising prices without losing too many of your clients is to keep it low key. It doesn't have to be a huge production. You can just put something simple on your reception desk or on the mirrors saying that in 6 weeks' time or whatever, you're going to be increasing your prices. Now, there will be some customers that you may lose. There'll be some price-sensitive clients out there. Not necessarily a bad thing. If it makes a significant impact on your income, though, then you've probably got bigger things to worry about than losing a few customers who are counting every penny or cent in their pocket. Okay, so that's service sales. Let's have a look at retail sales. Now this measures the total value of all products, and it also includes your walk-in retail. Okay. Now, one of the tips for this one is don't leave it to the would you like fries with that approach. Okay, we've all been to McDonald's and had the would you like fries with that. Most often you're going to say no. Being successful in attaching retail to your services has to do with that overall conversation. Remember that you're the specialist here and that your clients are looking to you for guidance and direction on how to keep their hair and skin healthy and looking fabulous. The language that you use during the client visit is really important. So take me for an example. So if I'm at the basin, I'm getting my hair washed and massaged, it's the perfect time for my stylist to say, hey, Donna, we've just started stocking XYZ shampoo and conditioner. It's going to be great for fine hair, which is what I have, and it's going to make your hair look thicker. Been trying to do that all my life, so if there's a product out there, I'm going to try it. So as the client, I'm immediately starting to buy into the recommendation, okay? And it doesn't come as a surprise that at the end, I'm actually going to buy the product because I'm already on the journey to buying it. The other thing, I'm a really tactile person. I like touching things, and if I'm out shopping, I'm always picking things up and so on. And if you put that product that you're recommending to me in my hand, then there's 90% chance that I'm actually going to buy it because I've actually looked at it, I've felt it, it's in my hand already. All I have to do is take the money out. I'm also one of those people who like to read what the product can do. So if the product's actually saying it's going to do something wonderful and I'm reading that, then that's another way of reinforcing that that product's important for me. So not only have you, my specialist, told me that it's going to be good for me, the product tells me that too. So it's going to increase the chances that I'm actually going to buy it as well. Helping your client understand how much to use, how to apply it also goes a long way to reinforcing the fact that they should be walking out the door with that particular product. And that's one of the things that my stylist does really well. Not only does she sell me great products, but she also tells me how to use them, when to use them, along with the why it's important. So just think about those things. The next one along is the appointment retail sales. Now this measure is the total value of products sold as part of an appointment. Now this excludes any of those retail only sales. So if I've just come in to buy product, it's not going to be showing in here. The total appointment value, this one is all services sold plus the appointment retail. And again, it excludes that walk-in retail. Then we've got another one here. This is about the average amount spent per appointment. Includes all services that are sold plus appointment retail, and again that excludes that walk-in retail. Client booking. Client rebooking is one that we talk about a lot, and today is no exception. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well. Now what this target measures is the rebooking figures and how many you've actually done. Now there's some thinking around rebooking just that I'd like you to know about. So when does a customer count as rebooking? If your client makes another appointment within 24 hours of their last appointment, then this is what Katoomba counts as rebooking. Now they could rebook at the end of their appointment, they may rebook online, or they may just give you a call when they get home or the next morning. As long as it's within that 24-hour period, it's going to count as rebooking. And someone said, well, what if my client books multiple appointments in advance? Now, these are still counted as rebooked. So long as those appointments are made within 24 hours of your client's last appointment and future appointments that were booked prior to your client's last appointment, they're all counted as rebooked. Okay? I'm not going to talk much about retention today, that's because it's not a target that we're looking at. But just thinking about client rebooking. One of the things I'd like to add about client rebooking is revisit rate. And when we were doing some research recently, we saw some interesting facts that I'd like to share. Your client revisit period is a really important number in your business. The length of time clients take between appointments has a huge impact on your annual revenue, and reducing it by even the shortest amount of time will result in a massive jump in revenue. Now, there's some stats from back in 2011, and I know that's a few years ago, but that's still important. we saw a client revisit period of 40 days, which is 5 weeks and 5 days. Okay, so that was pretty good. However, in 2012, New Zealand in particular experienced a bit of an increase to 46 days, which equates to 6 weeks and 4 days. Okay, now that particular revisit period, the increase of those 6 days on average decreased revenue by $1,400 per week. Now that's a lot of money when you think about it like that. So if you reduce your client visit period, it can have a huge impact on your business. Now we did some analysis and we found that on average the businesses completed, say, 95 appointments a week, and the average client revisit period is 46 days. So that's 6 weeks and 4 days. So if a salon if you made it your mission to reduce that revisit period down to 42 weeks, which is just 6 weeks, and it's just reducing it 4 days, you would actually have the ability to increase your client visits by 9 appointments each week. Okay. If you base that on an average client spend of, say, $99, okay, to give you an idea, say if you've got $99, okay, that's an extra $900 per week. And of course, if you magically multiply that by the annual figure, it comes out to $46,000 a year. Now that's pretty good to have on top of your revenue, isn't it? So I think that's pretty cool. I was working with the marketing team on that and I really like those particular stats. One of the other things that we found just recently, and I just want to talk a little bit about online booking, because if the customer goes home and says, oh, I'll book online, that's going to count to your rebooking figures as well. The ability to book online has really changed the behaviour of clients. In New Zealand in particular, 10% of all the bookings are now made online. Australia, it's about 9%, so it's just a little bit less. But in UK, it's 12% of bookings for online booking, so just some interesting stats. But actually, the feature provides you with convenience, provides your clients convenience, flexibility, and they can book with you when that suits them. But one of the really important things about online booking that we've found recently is that actually those customers who book online tend to spend more. Okay, per appointment, they have a higher spend if they've booked online than customers who have come in and booked through either a phone call or through the salon. Now, we're not sure why that is yet. We're still doing some analysis around that. This was just something that the team were talking to me about on Friday, but I thought it might be interesting for you to just think about that if your customers are using online booking, then they tend to spend more. So I think that's something that's really interesting. Okay, so back to targets. Okay, so what we're going to do now for a little bit is talk about how to set these up in Katoomba One and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop into the live system rather than try and just talk you through this here. So just excuse me one moment while I go and find my Katoomba, and here we go. I'll just get my computer to work. Okay, so you're going to come into the target screen in here. Okay, and I'm just going to go and have a quick look at the whole salon. Now this salon is just one that I've played with for training purposes, so figures may not necessarily be based in reality, but just to give you an idea of how it works. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've set up some targets. Now if you've not used targets before, you'll come in here with a page that's inviting you to set them up. Okay. You can then just go into edit your business targets, and it's going to come up with a screen that looks like this. And here you can go and choose which targets you want to select from. You don't have to have them all, you can just pick one or two and go from there. And if you've never used targets before, it's probably a really good idea to pick just a couple that are really important to start with. But if you're really into targets and you work with them all the time, then 7's a pretty good number. One of the key things here is the total sales, and these little tips here that are going to tell you exactly what I've talked to you about. These are what that target measures. So if you're setting that target, then that's what you can expect to see. Okay, and they're all just going to have those little tips there for you. What I've done is I've gone in and I've put some numbers in that I think is about right. for my salon. And that's where we get to the really important bit. It's actually really important before you even start putting numbers in here is actually you've thought about what the targets actually mean and what you've based this on. Now, one of the ways you can do this is you can have a look at your business expenses. Okay, so you can think about your rent, your insurance, your wages, your stock, and all your other bills that you have. Okay, so how much does it actually cost you to run your business every week, month, or year? Now, once you've got that figure, you'll know exactly what it is that you need to cover your overheads. Now, based on the figure that you've got, you can now actually calculate your profit goal. So what is it you want to achieve? You know what you have to have, but where do you want to get to? You can now divide that goal figure by the number of staff that you have working in your salon. And that's going to then give you the target for each team member. But that's going to give it to them all the same. Now, you might have a team that are all on the same level, all the same skill level and so on, in which case that will work perfectly. That'll be fine. But if you've got a salon or a spa that's got different levels of skill, which I'm sure most of you have, then you're going to have to do that slightly differently. So you've still got your goal figure of what it is that you want to achieve. Okay, so you've thought about that. You might have even had a conversation with your accountant to just see if you're on the right track. Then you need to look at the skill level for your staff. Okay, so you've got someone who's really experienced and is really good at selling stuff. So you're actually going to probably give them a bit more of a stretch target than you would perhaps the apprentice who's never sold anything much at all. Because they're just, one, if you gave the apprentice the same as the skilled staff member, you're just setting up the apprentice to fail. And if you're putting a too easy target in for somebody, then they're just not going to bother trying to do any more because that's my target, so why would I? So you need to think about the skill level and what's going to suit everybody. But you've got that main goal figure, and that's what you keep adding up all the smaller figures to. Once you've decided all of that information, you can then come in here and set what your targets are. Okay, and as I say, I've put some numbers in here that I think are going to work. And I'm going to come to you a bit about, well, what happens if it doesn't shortly. So then you just go save once you've put those in. And then, of course, you can come in here and you can then go into the staff member and you can go in and put in the numbers as well. And again, I've just broken it down, dividing it by the staff members, and I've put a degree of skill level in here as well for Claire, and so on. So that's just to give you a bit of an idea of how to do it. It really is just as simple as typing in the box, but it's the thinking behind it that's really important. Okay, so just to show you what we've got here. Okay, so there's our total sales. Now you can see here that I've missed by quite a large amount. I was doing really well at the beginning of the week, okay, until Thursday, and then things just didn't happen. Now, one of the things that you need to probably look at is when we get down a bit further is why did that happen? So what's going on that we were doing really good here, but what happened? And it could be just as simple as people got busy and therefore the conversation about buying stuff on top of that just got dropped off the conversation. But you need to have the conversation with your team about that. Now on here we've got our service sales, and again we've got the magic Thursday. What happened after Thursday is a question that you'd be needing to ask. And if you joined me last week with Adam, we talked about making sure you talk about this a lot. It's all very well having targets, but if you actually don't see them, you either forget about them. It's a bit like running a race. Okay, if you see the finish line, then you know where you're aiming for. You can get there. But if there's no finish line, then it's a bit harder to get there. And that's for me what targets are. So if your team can see these on a device or on an iPad or whatever it is that you've given them, or their own phones, if you've allowed them access through that, then it's much easier to say, oh, like in this case, Thursday I'm doing really well. When I got to Friday, I think, oh, what's going on here? I need to put a bit of extra effort in. So that's something that the more visual, the easier it is to keep people on track. And we'll move down here a little bit forward. Now you see my retail sales and my appointment sales here. Claire's not doing well in that space, so we need to sort that out. And total appointment value and so on. She's not doing well in this space. And for me, it's the visual that's really important. I see the colour and I think, okay, pink's not good, green's great. Okay, that's cool, it's all under control, but I could do a little bit better. In this case, you can see actually I've really exceeded the target. So one of the things you would first want to look at is the target too easy. So is this something that she's really good at, and therefore you'd want to look at just stretching that target a little bit more so she's got something to aim for. It's really important that it's something that isn't too hard, but is still a bit of a stretch. And I'll tell you a bit of a story about myself in this instance, setting a target for myself. A few years ago I decided I wanted to do the Round the Bays walk that we have here. It's about 10 kilometres, and prior to that, exercise for me was pretty much non-existent. So I put in a target of this is what I want to achieve, and I put pictures up around to remind myself that that's what I wanted to achieve. And one of the really important things was that when I was actually doing the race, there were points around the course that actually told you how far you'd come and how far you had to go. And that was really important for me to stay focused to keep going. So if you know where the finish line is and you can see it clear, it's much easier to get to than if you can't see it and it's just, you lose track. Okay, and then of course we've got our client rebooking. Again, we did really well at the beginning of the week. So what happened here? Is it as simple as we just got busy and the conversation with the customers got a bit more hurried? And that's something, of course, you just add into your team meetings, or if you have a stand-up meeting in the mornings with your team, that's the kind of stuff that you say, hey, you know, what's going on here? And so on. You might have a very competitive team, and I'm just going to slip back to everybody here. So you might have a very competitive team, in which case the more visual this is, the better. The other side of it is you might not have a competitive team against each other, but they might all want to really achieve, in which case you'd have the team goals here, which are really important. The other side of the coin with targets, of course, is it's about incentives. Okay, so why would I want to do this? Again, it's about knowing your staff really well and what is going to excite them. Now, for me, if somebody was setting up targets for me today, I want to put in a new kitchen in my home, and therefore money is important for me right now. 6 months ago, when I hadn't really thought about the kitchen, I would have been really happy just to go out on a team dinner, and that would have been my incentive to actually achieve, because I would do something with my whole team, and that would be great. The other thing about team targets is that everybody pulls together, and if one person's not actually doing much, the rest of the team will encourage them to, because they'll all want to achieve and go on that dinner. Okay, so again, it's really about thinking what it is you're measuring, and we've got the 7 ideas here. And I wouldn't recommend that you do too many more than 7 at a time. If you get too many, it just gets too hard and people lose focus. And if you're really new to targets, as I said, 1 or 2 to start with is a really good way to start. Okay, and from here, I'm just going to pop back to my summary slide. Okay, so the first thing you have to think about is determining what you want to measure for the business overall. So you actually have to think about why it is you're measuring this. You're measuring the increase that you want to make in that area. You know what the baseline is that you have to achieve because you've looked at your expenses and so on, and then you thought, okay, this is where my goal or my profit goal is, and what you need to do to get there. So some really good thinking to start with. You need to calculate your individual targets for your team based on the number of staff you have and their skill level. As I said, the experienced staff member as opposed to the apprentice, they're going to have different goals. They're just going to need to have different targets. What are you going to use as incentives for your team, and what if they don't achieve it? Okay, so some really great incentives. Sometimes for some people, a thank you is all that's required, and that's enough. That satisfies them. But movie tickets, you know, dinners out with the team or something special like that can be just as rewarding. For some people, it's about the money, and that's perhaps something you could structure into the commission. If you do commission, it's something that you could say, okay, well, we can talk about, add that into your sales. If you get this many sales, you get this much money. So it's, again, thinking about that. And what if they don't achieve it? Okay, so what if they don't actually get there? And that's just as important as rewarding them for achieving it. One of the things that you need to start thinking about it is, so what's happening for them not to achieve it? And it shouldn't be like, I'm trying to think, it's not a punishment that they didn't achieve it, it's actually what's happened, or what can I do to support you to achieve it next week? How are we going to do that? You don't have to do it by yourself. How are we going to get you there? Those are the things that you should be asking. Okay, and at that stage, I've got a question here. So, can the individual staff member see their target as well as the SPA target under their own login? Now, my understanding is that under their own login, they can only see their target. And I would have to clarify that, but my understanding is that they can only see the information that's pertinent to them. Okay, and finishing up for today, I'll just check, I haven't got any more questions. No, that's it. The other thing that's, if you're talking about, sorry, I've just gone off, had a thought. If you're talking about Katoomba 1, the other thing, if they've got their devices, they can also see their appointments, and it's only their appointments that they can see, and of course they can't see the full phone numbers or anything like that for their clients, so don't be worried about that. But it does help them know, okay, I've got Mrs. Jones coming in this afternoon. Now I know she always buys stuff, so be a bit prepared of what am I going to show her today, so she'll get some extra stuff. So just another tool to help them achieve their targets. Finishing up for today, plan your work, so have a really good plan in place. And I know it takes time, but actually that time's well worth it, because ultimately the business is going to succeed. If you do these things, it can't help but succeed. Okay, so plan your work and then put the plan to work. So work your plan, get your team on board and go for it, and you will be successful. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's my pleasure as always, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I look forward to catching up with you next time. Thanks a lot.